Welcome to Camp Re-Education. I am your host, Shay Langford, and every week we take our favorite stories from the internet and force our guests to take a stance. Joining me today, of course, and as always, is our co-host and Subway's February 2022 Sandwich Artist of the Month, is Ian Rowe. Joining us today is, of course, the very proud owner of an FBI shirt, but where instead of saying the normal FBI thing, it says Federal Booby Inspector, is none other than Eric Olmstead. And also, we are joined by a professional Japanese decency censor, putting those little pixelated box so delicately over the genitals of our favorite Japanese pornographic artist, Andy. So, thank you all so much for being there. Hope you've had a wonderful weekend. I don't have the time to hear about it, so I'm jumping in right away with our first question. Elon Musk versus Putin in a fistfight. Who wins? Eric, you first.
Putin.
Andy?
I would say Putin, but now that we've already said his name, I'm gonna have to go with Musk. I mean, he's a mad scientist. You know?
What do you think, Ian?
I think I'm going with Putin on this one, man. I think Putin takes one swing, and Musk, who's never been in a fight in his life, is going to be like, "Ow, you really hit me."
I think you're like 1,000,000% right. That's a South African Musk. No, 1,000,000%. I think Putin, who's like, even just maybe it's the Russian propaganda that's gotten to me, but seeing him bare-chested fishing and like the camo or whatever like he does, or like riding the bears or
riding that horse with Trump.
Yeah, like all that shit. I'm like, all right, this guy fucks. Very, very convinced that Elon Musk, to Ian's point, has probably never been more than gently slapped in his life.
100%, easily. I think it's no contest, and I really do want to see it. Like I don't know how it would work. I know Elon Musk challenged Putin to a fistfight on Twitter, which is like, I mean, that like what nobody saying no to you will fucking do to your brain. Where you're like, this is a great tweet. This is. I have so much influence over the economy, and I should challenge Putin to a fistfight. I would pay so much fucking money to see that. I would literally have a child and then give it away if it meant that I could actually watch that happen.
Would you give it to the victor?
Yeah. The winner
gets my firstborn.
Don't forget, guys.
This is what you're fighting for. No, I mean, like, well, Putin's okay. So he's in the KGB and he's a black belt, I guess.
Is that true?
Yeah, no. That is true. And so that's what I was like, okay, when I heard this article, I'm like, you know, it's pretty obvious. However, he's older than Musk, but I still imagine that training will count for a lot.
Yeah.
And then Musk, I mean, you know, if this was a celebrity deathmatch claymation, I would imagine, you know, he'd pull out some crazy Bitcoin machine or something and like kill him. I don't know, or like Starlink him from, you know.
Well, Andy, I gotta say, I just looked it up, and Putin was a black belt, is no longer a black belt after, I guess, the World Taekwondo Federation stripped Vladimir Putin of his honorary black belt title. So maybe now with his former,
it was honorary. I didn't know
honorary.
that.
For all I know, maybe he's taken a couple classes or something. But yeah, he has an honorary black belt, which honestly makes him feel way softer.
That doesn't sound right.
Do people with honorary degrees, like, did they tell people they graduated from those schools? Like, yeah, I graduated from Harvard. Like, really? Like, I mean, honorarily, but yes, it still counts.
Yeah. Does that go on the CV?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what's the protocol for that? Can you put it in your email signature?
I would 1,000,000% put honorary Harvard degree on my fucking email signature. I don't care what the job is.
It's just an acknowledgement that the college is like, yeah, this guy's smart. This guy's pretty smart. You could have gone here. You didn't, but you could have.
2 thumbs way up.
Or just been really rich. You know, like like your doctor comes in. Yeah, I'm an honorary doctor. I'll be doing your surgery today. Like, you know, I would, nothing.
Well, that being said, let's. I have a lot more to say about this, but I will stop us before we go off too far into left center field. Fuck it, I'm hungover. Fuck it. Okay. Here we go. Let's try this again. Following Joe Biden's promise to refund the police, America might soon be putting cops in unexpected places, like outer space. This begs an interesting question. Following all of the recent proposals in space exploration, research, travel, and commerce, is a proposal to create space cops a justifiable one? Andy, I'll let you answer first.
Space cops. Space cops. Okay, so there's a lot here. One, I think the word soon was used in this description.
Okay, wait. For before I let you go on, I'm just looking for initially for a yes or no answer, and the proposal just at first. But the proposal is by 2025. They want to start like putting this into effect, and we'll learn a little bit more about this in a second. But I mean, like,
okay,
do you
that's
think?
Pretty soon.
Yeah. I mean, based on what I just said about the research, the travel, the exploration. I mean, like, does it scan? Is it like, okay, yeah, like this makes sense?
Yes, but I don't like it.
Okay, all right. We'll come back to the Eric. Yes or no?
Since terrestrial policing was such a huge fucking success. No, absolutely fucking not.
All right, and then I want to hear from Shay before I let you guys expand on these thoughts.
My first gut reaction is like, fuck no, like hell no.
I'm also, I mean, okay. Initially, I was a absolutely fucking not, and then I don't know, like okay. Andy and Eric, you guys are really the stars of the show. You're the guests. You're just like the absolutely gorgeous human beings that we invited on here to share everything that's great about. Yeah, exactly. I could keep saying nice things about you, but that's not why the people are here. So expand on your yeses and nos. And Andy, you're like waffly kind of like leaky fart confirmation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's an inevitability. Like, regardless. The technology gets there and it becomes more accessible. Like, I'm just going to go take, a vacation to the moon or whatever. I think it's just going to be an extension of our normal, like, justice system, like wherever we go. But I said that, I'm like instantly depressed. Like, I feel like if you have the opportunity to like go beyond this, the failures that we've already, explain or portrayed here on Earth, as Eric was talking about, I think you have an opportunity to start over. That's what like it's so cool about sci-fi is like you're like, oh, we just like colonized another planet. Let's like reimagine what humanity could be and how we deal with like policing or justice, the economy, like work, etc. That's like the final frontier. And now you're saying like the final frontier is going to be more of the same in a little ways. Like that's like a little bit soul crushing, but I feel like it, will have to eventually get there. I mean, space pirates. I don't know what they're going to be policing in the, like, is it just like a travel cop, like on my plane kind of thing? Is that the police? I don't know.
Eric, how about you?
So first of all, I think my problem with it is who's leading this charge.
The
it's
Space
an
Force,
agency,
which was
it's
founded
an
in
agency
2019.
called fucking Space Force. Yeah, that should be enough to justify my position. But I mean, to Andy's point about our lack of imagination in moving into space, like policing has its roots in protecting the ultimate bourgeois right to property, right? And so space really is only accessible by those with an obscene amount of disposable income for the purposes of vacationing and a handful of prestigious aeronautical engineers and other scientists, right? So like it only makes sense that we would be first thinking about how to protect that like most critical right of preservation of property. It checks out.
I think to both of your points, in terms of like reimagining a better future, I think this is how we get rid of bad cops. I think we just let them know, like, hey, we're putting cops in space, and I guarantee you that's how they will all die. Like, no, not a single one of these cops is gonna know how to like do anything in space. One of them is gonna shoot like at their fucking ship and just like get sucked out through a fucking hole and turn into spaghetti.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is a pivotal step in domesticating and privatizing space. And my main problem with it is who's doing it, not because they're called Space Force, but like, shouldn't this be NATO?
Right.
Like,
I think,
why are we
Or the UN Security
unilaterally
Council.
surveilling space from the angle of military policing?
That's exactly my issue with it, is that it's just like the US is just taking the stance. They're like, yep, we're the police now. You know, it's not a collaborative or collective decision. It's just us being like, no, we're the cops now. It's space colonization.
This was a good opportunity to rethink borderlessness and communal space. And it's a lost opportunity.
And I mean, like, I think about like what Andy said, and like, Andy, this isn't like a dig at you, but like, I'm kind of in the same like corner where it's just like, God, like, fuck, this could be like an inevitability, but like, I wonder if like that level of thinking is like counterintuitive, right? Like, because like, I feel like, to Eric's point, we should all be like taken to the streets and be like, no cops in space. Like, now is the time to do that. But it's just like, we're just kind of like, oh, cops in space, huh? That scans for us.
I guess I could attempt to maybe elaborate, because that's a really interesting point. I would say that no matter what we call them, there'll be some sort of level of like protection enforcement of the technology, property, billions and millions of dollars that go into that kind of project. Yeah. And so whether you call them like a security official or whatever, like there'll be some sort of like element of a human sample population, no matter where they are, that is responsible or like decided to be a protector, security, whatever kind of thing. As like humans group and self-organize, usually that would be a demographic within them. So whether we call it cops, you could also argue that you're projecting how cops would behave, on Earth into this new sci-fi scenario.
Yeah.
And so,
well, but it's better than that. We're calling them chips. So we've set the expectations for behavior pretty fucking low.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, because we're on a tight schedule here, Andy, I don't mean to cut you off, but to Eric's point, I mean, like, and it's like manufacturing consenti as fuck. All right, like this article comes from a magazine called Task and Purpose, which is like it's like journalists reporting everywhere from the Pentagon to the White House and beyond. Yeah, exactly. It's rough, but.
Wait, they're called chips, though? Sorry.
I'm gonna read this to you, okay? They call space, this is the article I pulled this from Task and Purpose. They call space the final frontier, but it's starting to look more like Interstate 405 on Memorial Day weekend. Already, this guy sucks. Fuck him. At least that's what the Space Force fears will happen as the public and commercial sectors and send more satellites into space between Earth and the moon. To keep a closer eye on this burgeoning lane of space traffic, America's newest military branch wants to start a Cislunar Highway Patrol System, or CHIPS for short, just like the California Highway Patrol made famous by the 1970s TV show CHIPS.
I might be totally wrong about this, but like, don't we need a highway first in order to have patrol? What the fuck are they even talking about?
One of the dipshittiest, like, brain dead takes I saw, like, because like after we read the articles, like I'll scour the internet to be like, all right, what is the common man saying, and you go to Reddit to just find like your average like smooth brain position, and this one person comments, the Navy, Eric, you're gonna love this. The Navy ensures open seas for commerce. It's only natural that the Space Force do that same thing for space. Like, I'm fucking sorry. Like, so we're going to stop shipping materials on the ocean in like, containers, and we're going to launch them into space, which is just going to burn like so much fucking fuel. It's bad enough when a cargo ship sinks into the ocean. Like, can you imagine just like a fucking a rocket ship full of Tickle Me Elmos, like barreling towards Cape Canaveral, like after it's like lost control or contact with GPS?
I have to imagine that that's not the point that the Redditor was making, though, right? Like the Redditor was just talking about protecting rights of travel, not suggesting replacing shipping containers, right?
They said specifically for commerce, like it's
so like merchant marines in space.
Yes, like just yeah, it's like, oh, space, the final frontier. It's going to be so exciting. It's going to be like Star Trek, research and exploration. The next line of this, there's a great deal of money to be made on the moon and the space between. Lunar ice can be used to make water, oxygen and rocket fuel, which can fuel missions deeper into space. The Center for Strategic and International Studies noted this in a 2010 report. The moon also has large deposits of helium-3, which can transform energy production on Earth by enabling nuclear fusion and making fossil fuels obsolete. So we've got to use the fossil fuels to get to the moon, to get the helium-3, to bring back, to turn into not fossil fuels, while we keep using fossil fuels to get to the moon to bring back helium-3. It just seems so fucked. Like, it all just seems so fucking stupid.
We're weaning, okay.
We're getting exactly what we deserve.
I feel like if we're going to, strip mine the moon, we're definitely gonna kill ourselves. Like the tides are gonna get all fucked up, and we're just gonna. I mean, they already are getting there with global warming or whatever. But yeah,
something I didn't get to talk to you guys about was, I mean, the Space Force. It's important, I feel like, to remember, because I forget this. Was founded in 2019. Like, it's not that old, and it's not really doing anything. And I think this is more than anything like a means for the Space Force to try to justify its existence and be like, we're not really doing much. Like, their claims to fame so far are, like, if you go on like their website or whatever, they're like, yeah, we're fighting the international war on terror, doing a great job, gang. And the other one is like they warned somebody that like missiles were coming, and then the missiles still came and like killed people and gave like 8,000 people concussions or something. But it's just like, it sounds like there's just there's 6,434 military personnel, 77 aircraft, and I just don't think they have anything to do. So I think this is literally the result of like someone high up in like the bureaucracy being like, we got to make it look like we're making progress. And they wrote this stupid fucking article, and they're going to be like, any day now that space highway is going to be coming in to bring you all your treats. And
I was telling my partner about this the other day, and he thought I was talking about a sequel to that Steve Carell show,
right? And
was so fucking upset to find out that this was just like a real life plan and not some entertainment on Netflix for us. I think the reality is we won't spend enough money on it to be a problem. I think we'll expand our surveillance state by sending satellites up. I think the plan is to do that by 2025. But this idea of having humans stationed in space, I think that's pretty far off. I mean, our funding for space exploration has only been decreasing. So I would be surprised if we did anything really serious in this space.
Well, let me read you guys one more little paragraph, and then we'll just check in and see if we've changed our minds or not. Right now, the space-based economy encompasses about $350 billion per year's worth of work, said David Spencer, associate professor of aeronautics and astronautics at Purdue University. But over the next 30 years, are we even going to be around in 30 years? Like, I read this shit, I'm like, I don't know, fam. But over the next 30 years, forecasts say that the space-based economy is going to grow to about $3 trillion per year, and that's all because of inflation. I think this is just, I don't know if you guys would agree with me. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. I think this is just basically like, we are running out of markets. And I think this is like evident with like the metaverse thing, which I think we talked about with you, Eric, and like we, like on the terrestrial Earth, like we have like bled our frontiers dry, and we're like, fuck it. Like, it's space. Like, that's the new jobs are going to be in space. We're going to have space construction workers, space cops, space fucking moon miners. Like, that's like, it's not for research or bettering mankind. It's just like to have like more fucking middle management positions. Like, I don't know. Like, am I being too cynical? What do you guys think?
I think you're being just the right amount of cynical.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's exciting, but I feel like this. Is
it exciting?
It's exciting.
What are you excited about it?
Yeah. I mean, if I okay, so I'm excited with anything technology driven. Whether we inject our current shitty social systems into it is another thing. I just generally like sci-fi technology made real, I think is exciting. I don't know if it's another market that we need to exploit. I think it's people are realizing the caps of our resources, of population overgrowth, etc. of our current planet, it's like only natural to think, let's get out of this.
Rather than to take care of the home that we have.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
and to only allow a handful of well-provisioned elite to be able to survive.
Yeah, I think we're really close to the point where you can't do that anymore. Where like the event horizon, you're spending
all of your resources trying to throw garbage into space. That's for certain.
No. I agree. Like I agree from a ethical or moral standpoint. Like I definitely agree that's what we should do as a species. But you don't really see change happen that fast. And like we all I think it's nice to think that yes, we could enact change really fast, and do this as a species. But like ultimately, I'm more on the side of like we're going to hit that event horizon point within the planet where we can't reverse the damage to it. And it's only natural to think, let's prepare for plan B and let's put all our chips into getting off of Earth before it, implodes or becomes a nuclear holocaust or whatever. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm too much into sci-fi. I watch too many sci-fi movies, but I do think there is some level of like, let's hit the abort button, and it's this tragedy, but yeah.
I feel like our fascination or like fever dream with getting off of Earth to save the human race is just part of a capitalist fever dream. Then we're all just like drunk on it. Like I appreciate like the hope in your perspective of we might be able to make technological advancements fast enough to be able to save the human race by going into space. But we haven't been able to make the technological advancements necessary to get off of fossil fuel in this amount of time, not because we aren't technologically capable, but because of the forces of capitalism. And so to think that somehow those same forces that have arrested our progress in terms of moving to clean energy won't extend to technological development into space, I think is maybe a little short-sighted.
Well, not to cut this off here, which I would like to keep going, but unfortunately I can't. We have 3 other things we have to talk to you about, and they're just as important as space cops and the end of human race. So before we move on, a final answer, yes or no, space cops, yay or nay?
Nope.
Undecided.
No. Yes or no? What are we saying?
Situationally okay.
No, that's not how this game works. Yes or no, Andy?
A very undercooked yes.
Okay. Before we move on, I just want to play the Space Force March for us. All right. So before we're gonna march into our next segment with the Space Force March. Can you guys hear this?
No.
Oh, really?
Barely.
No, I can't really hear it.
Okay, well, fuck me. All right.
Ian's dancing alone to the Space Force March. Love it.
You like barely hear it in the background.
You won't be able to hear it in space either.
All right.
I love that idea. Like, play him off, boys.
All right. Way more important than space cops is the fact that we are being, at present, swindled by Frito-Lay out of exactly 5 chips per Dorito bag as of recently. They recently confirmed 5 fewer chips per bag due to inflation and the absolute mind-belting, boner-bending horror. So my question to you all is, should we care at all about the decreasing size of junk food when we're in the middle of dealing with a ballooning housing shortage and trying to curb the increasing risks of nuclear war and racing against the doomsday clock's climate apocalypse? Eric?
It's a funny time to take issue with big agriculture and processed food companies lying to us, but yeah, we should care.
We should care. All right. Andy?
I like how Andy just loses it.
So I'd say no, we shouldn't care.
Shouldn't care.
You know, $1 is worth, my $1's worth 15 chips, and now my $1's worth 10 chips. That's what the value of the $1's worth. That's all good.
All right, and Ian, what's your answer?
Can you guys still can't hear that, huh?
No. Are you still listening to the Space March?
I'm still trying to play it.
Get your head in the game. What are you doing?
It's so good. All right.
Do we need to repeat the question?
I know the question. I like, okay. Do I care? Like, no, I don't fucking care. All right. Do I care about companies fleecing us? Yes. Do I care that like fucking pre-diabetic Americans will have like 5 less fucking treats? No, fuck them. I don't care.
All right. Well, let me give you guys a little bit. Let's set the stage here with some definitions and some terms. So, if you guys aren't familiar, there's a term called shrinkflation. It's like inflation, but smaller. Really appreciated that. So it's a cost-cutting. Shrinkflation is a cost-cutting strategy in which companies reduce the size of products while keeping prices the same. So effectively minimizing the value that you ultimately get as a customer for paying the same price. And the reason people are doing this is because manufacturers are seeing their bottom line squeezed by inflation, pandemic-related supply chain bottlenecks, and labor shortages. But customers tend to notice when price tags go up in stores, which is why they handle this by reducing the actual products that they're including. It's an inconspicuous way, sneaky way to pass on increased costs to consumers.
Why is Doritos a publicly traded company?
What?
Like what?
Why is Doritos?
Isn't it like an umbrella though?
Frito-Lay. Yeah. Is it like? Isn't it publicly traded? Like why? Like what is the cutting edge? What is the cutting edge Dorito technology that like we're fucking waiting for?
Why does the stock market exist? Is that your question?
You're like asking a different question than you realize, Ian.
Why did they go, we need to take this public? And why did people go, fuck yeah, I am invested?
I thought they were like a part of a conglomerate, like
I think
Kellogg or something, right?
I'm looking it up right now.
I'm looking it up too.
The Frito Company issued its first public stock in 1954.
Doritos
and then
publicly traded. I'm thinking like DOR on the stock
It's
trader.
Pepsi.
Like
it's Pepsi, yeah. It's a subsidiary of PepsiCo.
Okay.
So
yeah.
So Dorito belongs to Frito-Lay, belongs to Pepsi. You know, it's like the Russian dolls of businesses. Ian, being a company on the stock market doesn't have to do with being like tech forward. Like coal is on the fucking, like you just pull it out of the ground and fucking sell it. You know what I mean?
At least I don't know. Like at least like okay, like I understand like coal is used for energy production, and you can make the argument that like Doritos are for like my like yummy Doritos
are also for energy production.
For energy production for me, right?
Human energy production. Yeah.
It's not very efficient, but neither's coal. So
hey, a lot of calories. You know, it's a pretty calorie-dense meal, right? In terms of that kind of nutrition. So the idea here, though, as we were just saying, is it's another way of thinking of inflation. Does it bother you more now, knowing that the idea here is basically just a sneaky, underhanded way of like kind of ripping off the customers? Like I know, Andy, you say we shouldn't care. Do you care more now that you're just like, well, hey, fuck you. Still don't care.
No, honestly, I don't think they're being sneaky here. They just want to keep my price the same. And honestly, they're doing me a favor. Like that calories number on the bag is going down. You know what I'm saying? So,
do you think this is the Doritos way to fight the obesity epidemic in the United States?
They should have rebranded it as that. Honestly, yeah.
Doing our part to save the children. Who else is brave enough to stand up to big diabetes?
There you go.
All right, Eric, I'm sure you have some really good reasons why you think that it's fucked up. Why do you think that?
I mean, well, so I agree with Ian on the front of reducing the number of trash calories in a bag. Probably net positive, and if it actually impacts people's quantity of consumption, because 5 chips, not a big deal. But if you eat a bag of chips twice a day or every day or 5 days a week, like it adds up. Fine. I don't eat that shit. So on a personal level, like I don't feel super affected. I'm not butthurt that I'm getting 5 less Doritos in a bag. But I think it's just an example of one more way that food companies can operate with a lack of transparency unchecked, because it is sneaky. People don't realize that they're getting less and less. I think we should be getting less and less. There should be much more regulation in the food industry, period.
Well, what's interesting about this phenomenon too, so I know we're talking specifically about junk food here. We brought it up talking about Doritos, but this isn't just something that's limited to food. So this happens in all consumer goods, obviously. So just to read a little bit more from this article, Crest 3D White reduced its 4.1 ounce tube to 3.8 ounces, according to producer Procter & Gamble. The company also confirmed that a package of Bounty Triples paper towels that used to come with 165 sheets now only has 147, the equivalent of 3 fewer sheets per roll. Now, does that bother you, Andy, or do you think that they're somehow helping us by preventing fluoride-induced government mind control or helping out with deforestation?
More cavities is good for the economy, all right? I stand behind Crest.
Yeah, the dental industry really needs that.
If you have a little less toothpaste to squeeze out, it's going to be trapped in that little pocket that no one gets anyway. So it all kind of just goes out to the same expectations of like that frustration at the end of it roll. So
Do you guys? This is a fun life hack. I haven't seen it anywhere. This is just a little Ian Rowe life hack for you. Does anyone else like when you get down? You take some scissors and you cut the toothpaste open, and then you scrape. Yeah, that's how you get everything.
Wait,
you guys
never
do that?
done that.
What are you scraping with?
The toothbrush, and you just get it off. And that's how you get every fucking last drop that they're trying to not let you squeeze out of there. All right, nothing escapes.
Just a momentarily.
I love your Depression era life hack.
Yeah.
That's great.
I'm just curious. I've never done this before. You've piqued my interest. You open this thing up. You cut it open. I'm imagining, you have like tinfoil. All right, so you're like a flat thing. Is that enough for one toothpaste, or now do you have just like an open can of toothpaste that you're using for 2 or 3 things, like sitting on your kitchen?
You open it up. You cut it. You open it up. You scrape. You get what you need on the toothbrush. You close it again. You put it behind the cupboard. You close the little glass. No one has to see it. No one knows it's there but you. And you do that for maybe 2 or 3 more days before it's finally time to bite the bullet and get more toothpaste. 2 or 3 more days of like single day, like 1 time a day brushing or like twice a day brushing. Like how many times do you brush? I'm sorry that you guys aren't economical. I'm sorry that Eric, when you put toothpaste on your toothbrush, like it starts on the knuckle and like drags over and like spills into the sink. I am not that guy. I have done the thing that you're talking about. I have done it. Yeah. Usually because I'm too fucking lazy to go to the store and get more toothpaste. It's an act of desperation. Well, so I don't know if Shay hit this point, but I just didn't want it to get swept under the rug. My favorite of the shrinkflation, companies fleecing the consumer was Gatorade also recently replaced its 32-ounce bottle with a 28-ounce bottle for the same price. And I fucking love this. A redesign the company representative told courts made the bottle more aerodynamic and easier to grab. I love that bullshit.
I like that. You can throw it to me like a football easier.
It's when you're setting new 100-meter records holding your Gatorade that you can you can shave off a few extra milliseconds. That's the idea there. It's like sharp to a point so you can stab the other athletes. Just like make your way past them.
It's like a Gatorade knife.
Yeah. All right. So circling back, do we think, so if we expand this more to just, I guess, shrinkflation generally, not just necessarily about actually, I'm more curious about just the Doritos. I don't want to talk about your Crests. I don't want to talk about your Gatorades. How do you feel about Doritos? Eric, you still think it's fucked up?
Yeah, I mean, I only think it's fucked up because it's not transparent. And I think that people need to be more keyed into what's happening in terms of inflation and how it impacts them. And this is just kind of a way to maybe skirt along a little bit longer without people realizing what's happening. When the price of a gallon of milk increases, we understand what's going on there. When you lose 5 chips, I also have questions about like the downstream consequences of the reduction of material in a package and then eventually having to retool and the cost the ultimate like long range cost. Like, is this even really an effective approach? Do we know?
In terms of reducing the packaging, overall packaging and thing like having to explain yourself.
I'm just saying, so businesses are doing this to ease the squeeze on their own wallets because of inflation, right?
Right.
But people start to notice, and then eventually package sizes have to catch up with the reduced contents of the package. And eventually companies end up having to retool and produce smaller packages to accommodate the smaller quantity of goods going out in a unit. And so I'm questioning this even as an economic strategy.
I'm basing this on how expensive baby clothes are versus how expensive clothes are for big people who shop at like big and tall stores. I think it's cheaper to make the smaller bags because it's cheaper to clothe a baby than it is to clothe a man.
I thought you weren't sure how to say adults, so the big people. Eric, would you be more okay with this if they said Doritos now less calories? Would you be more okay with it then?
No. I mean, I would rather them say now 5% less Doritos in a bag. Like,
all right, Andy, what do you think? Have you changed your mind?
No, I haven't. But I will. So generally, I think yes. Shorting over the consumer is bad, right? I agree. But it could be glass half full here. A stopgap to reduce panic or reduce backlash, whatever. I get it. They still want to sell Doritos. And so if someone's saying, oh, we're selling 5 less, they're probably going to sell less Doritos or just make them more expensive. To Eric's point about the economy of retooling machines, production pipelines, etc., technically, I think you could fit 1 Dorito in a fun-sized bag that should hold 15. So they could just say, okay, here's your premium chip. They rebrand it, here's your 1 singleton. But no, honestly, until we get to the point where we have to worry about 1 chip in a fun-sized bag, then I think we need to. And
that's kind of my question, though, is like, I mean, when does it end? Like, and I don't want to, of course, I'm aware I'm evoking like the slippery slope fallacy, and I'm like, oh, it's like, we're going to end up in a world where it's just 1 chip per bag, and they're going to tell us it's premium. But honestly, where does it fucking stop? I think that's the most frustrating thing is like, it really is illustrating like our powerlessness is, Johnny Singlechip waltzes into the board of the Doritos company and he's like, all right, guys.
He's like, did you know we're publicly traded? What's going on with this?
We
got a lot of, look, the board is not happy, all right? We need ideas to save this chip now. And one guy's like, we make the chips more aerodynamic. And he's like, no, I hate it. And one guy's like, we make the chips louder when they're crunchier when you bite into them. He's like, no, fuck, you're fired. And one guy's like, less in a bag. And he's like, the shareholders will love it. So I don't know. That's all I have to say on that. Anyway, I think we've got another story in line, right, Shay? Okay.
I think we do.
Moving on to the next. There's Eric, I'm sorry. There's more. Thanks for coming on. Worried that Gen Z might forget something they were too young for or weren't even alive to remember, tech companies have devised a VR experience traumatic enough to ensure that not only will you never forget it, but that it will give you PTSD. This year's Southwest by South the festival thing in Texas. South X by Southwest Festival featured a virtual reality exhibit billed as Surviving 9/11, 27 hours under the rubble. I had a more complex question, but I simplified the fuck out of it. My question is this. Is this helpful to anyone, anywhere, for any fucking reason to make the Surviving 9/11 VR experience?
The PTSD machine.
Andy, you first.
Is it helpful? I mean, is it helpful like a bag of flour is helpful to make bread? I don't know. But is that the right question?
Less helpful than a bag of flour. Okay, I love it.
I don't know. I would say no, it's not helpful, but I don't think that means it's not without some merit if it's done tastefully.
All right, Eric, how about you?
I think that the context in which it was rolled out is fraught. I think it could have value as a tool for like more rich cultural storytelling. But I would have liked to have seen it released in an environment that was a little bit less capitalist, a little less, like tech, and a little bit more like culture oriented. And I know it's an art and culture festival, but like, really?
It's weird because like I could just imagine seeing like Dua Lipa and then being like, "You guys want to go survive 9/11?" Like it just seems weird.
A ride at an amusement park.
Oh my God. I mean, not that wouldn't be an incredible ride. I'm sorry. Okay, I had some more stuff here. Shay, did you have any 2 cents you want? Really quick. Is it South by Southwest? Is that the name of the festival?
The X
What's
is
the X there for?
The X is
What
the
is the
buy.
X?
That's buy.
Oh, I thought it was like X marks the spot. Like, okay. South
X.
by, all right.
South, the X marks the spot by Southwest. Is that what you thought it was?
More, I don't care about festivals, all right? Like,
Care
I'm
more.
not like
Care just a little more. Yeah. All right.
I'm not like a peasant on like feudal grounds, okay? Like festivals mean nothing to me. All right. I thank you for everyone's measured thoughts. My follow-up question was like, I feel like more like conspiratorially and like insidiously, stuff like this just feels like a way to get like younger generations emotionally invested enough in like atrocities to support like foreign interventions. Like I'm just picturing like the virtual tour through Ukraine, and it's going to be like, I mean, guys, it was such a harrowing VR experience. Like we have to nuke Russia. So it's just like what do you think of that? Like, is that too... I think that's more like complex than what's going on. Like, I think what's going on is somewhat sinister. I think it's motivated by profit. I think the fact that it was in a booth, stamped with Meta's logo. I think the timing of the release also, like Zuckerberg has a history of being tone deaf when it comes to releasing things that could be interpreted as disaster porn. And I think this could be, I think this in that venue situates it as disaster porn, or at least like creates the potential for that. Whereas if this was in a little bit more, institutionalized environment, a history museum or something, I could see it having some merit. But I'm also just not really sure what the fuck it is. Is it being put out as a platform for a tech platform for better storytelling? Is it like a documentary? Like, is it art? What is it exactly? Because the ambiguity is one of the things I have an issue with. Well, I've got some information to maybe like help clarify what it is. All right, so this article is from Ben Bergman for Business Insider, and Benny Boy writes, Twitter users have been up in arms after an exhibit called Surviving 9/11, 27 Hours Under the Rubble was featured at the South by Southwest, thank you.
There's my boy.
Tech conference. People have been accusing Meta of profiting off of 9/11 and turning it into a video game. After I saw the tweet storm, I being Ben, of course, I was curious to experience the exhibit. It was popular. I had to endure an hour and a half wait list to get it. At this, I'm like, that surprises me a little that an hour and a half worth's wait of people were like, I got to check this 9/11 shit out.
Well, but how long is it?
So
if there are two headsets, like
27 hours. No, it's 20 minutes.
Okay.
The full.
So there were like four people ahead of him.
Oh, actually, yeah. When you put it that way, you're right. He's like, "Oh, this is great. It's so popular." I like that workaround of the way of being like, there were only 4 people in line that I had to wait, instead of being like, oh wow, an hour and a half, huh? So let's see here. Surviving 9/11 is not a video game, but actually a somber 20-minute first-person documentary about Janelle Guzman McMillan, a Trinidadian immigrant who was the last person to be rescued at Ground Zero. I did not find the documentary tasteless, but my stomach churned watching scenes vividly recreated, being high in the Twin Towers as the first plane hit and seeing debris falling outside the window. The parts using archival footage of the World Trade Center observation deck overlooking the New York skyline before 9/11 were also gut-wrenching. as was the whole experience of Guzman Macmillan being trapped under the Rebel for 27 hours.
How much is she getting paid? Because I think really my position on this is how much is she benefiting?
That's a great question. Ian, do you know that?
No, they definitely did not mention that, but I'm sure that would make it seem like that much more tasteless if they either.
If they sold her rights.
Is that person? Is she even still alive?
I think so.
I would imagine so.
She was the last person rescued from.
Yeah, she didn't die from 9/11 at least, but
yeah.
Well, dude, all right. So
also, that wasn't that long ago.
Right. My gut reaction about this, Ian, it's kind of interesting. So like my first thoughts when you were talking about this like kind of changed. I was like, okay, first 9/11, like next is it going to be like surviving Parkland shooting? And then you're like, oh, feel what it was like to be like cowered under a desk during like this famous shooting, or, you know, like kind of what you're talking about, like other American like tragedy stuff. And like that feels equally as tasteless and like politically motivated. But I will say like there is a slight difference about like, maybe this is like some kind of like identity type politics sticking out where it's like, okay, well, this is like the story of an immigrant, like living the American dream, one person story survivor. Maybe also the fact that it was exactly 27 hours and there's a movie about a guy being stuck under a rock for 27 hours already that like draws some like sympathetic narrative ideas. But like for some reason, like something about it also being a documentary, I think changes it slightly for me where it feels a little less horrifying and disaster porny, if that makes sense.
Andy, what do you think? Yeah, I want to hear. As our resident video game designer, what do you think about not surviving 9/11?
Sure.
27 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm kind of focusing on the medium here, and I think a lot of it. I think the incendiary portion of this article, or you know, a lot of people on Twitter and Reddit and stuff see this, and it's like, oh, we're exploiting people, da 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 da, and I feel like. Yes, or exploiting tragedy, disaster porn, as you guys called it. I feel like that's could be true, and there's definitely a lens for that. What I'm more interested in this article is how like, because there was some mention of storytelling in the article as well, and I think the medium of VR, people confronting that because it's like. The enhanced realism or the enhanced immersion of VR is something that people are, I think we're still trying to wrestle with within the larger consumer sphere and what we do with it. If we look at through that lens and we're saying, okay, well, we can tell better stories. And what's the purpose of that? Like, well, in this, it's partially maybe a slice of like, this is a historical educational experience. This is also a cathartic experience. And I like Eric's point about putting it in the right venue, the right context, because it definitely, I feel like it'd be best served in a museum or something with some sort of like somber reflection to really capture the gravity of the tragedy, right? But I also think that the medium can really support the catharsis that could come with that level of viewership. Right? Like if you look at movies, okay, so we look at movies like Schindler's List or whatever, like that cover historical tragedy. I mean, I think a lot of people can watch or imbibe these kind of things and then feel a lot of like heavy weight afterwards, right? And that level of like emotional exploration through storytelling, I think we have there with VR, there could be a very well, like more polished stepping into the frame. Like I think that's what I'm circling around is like in this moment with technology, we're getting closer to stepping into the frame and going beyond it and looking around, looking behind the camera. And that is an interesting aspect of this article for me.
Keeping everything in mind as we move on to our last story, like, is this helpful at all? Final thoughts? Yes, we're on. It sounds like everyone's like, yeah, it's not so bad. Maybe don't roll it out at fucking South. Maybe don't roll it out at the Texas Festival in the South, but
oh, you're talking about Austin City Limits? Which one?
South by South. Fuck me, dude. Shay, you've got one more story, right?
Well, actually, no. I want to find out though what you guys think. Like, Eric, did you change your mind about this, or you feel the same?
I mean, I think my position on it, even originally, was it's I think it's fine in the right context. My issue with it is how it was rolled out. I think that, yes, it could potentially be useful. I think, to the earlier point that was made, like anything that makes it possible for us to share some sort of, storytelling in general is really important, whether it's for the purposes of reconciling a historical disaster, like this or not. I think that it has value.
Well, it's funny too, because, and this is one thing I just wanted to like get your final thoughts on. And I'm sorry, I know I said we move on, but like he spoke to the like makers of it or whatever, and they had this to say. He goes, 9/11 is obviously a very sensitive topic. It's one of those experiences where if you haven't seen it, you don't understand. And this was by Victor Algon, the manufacturer of the fucking story. The author notes that I do wonder if the fact that he and the other filmmakers are not American, they are French, mean they don't fully grasp just how sensitive 9/11 is in the American consciousness. So I do love this idea that like French VR storytellers were like, we need to make something for Americans. What should we do? And one guy was like, I hear they fucking love 9/11. And they were like, perfect. 27 hours under the rubble. Here we come.
That's fascinating. Andy, what do you think? You change your mind on this or not?
No, I'm good.
No, I'm good. Let's say. Well, cool. I will just say, just as one quick parting note for this section, I changed my mind actually. At first, I thought this was like in super poor taste, but Andy, your point about like just using this as like a more immersive narrative storytelling aspect of it actually did change my mind. As long as it's done correctly and in the right venues, and I actually do think that it being VR and like an experience you can do immersive without having to go to the 9/11 Center in Manhattan. I think that obviously that's a super powerful experience in itself, but I think being able to like, I don't even care about the 9/11 aspect, but just being able to like relive these kind of things in a VR setting is fucking cool. So with that, taking us out of here, Psychology Today posted an article saying that people have misconceptions about power and that those misconceptions might make people more power averse. And my question to you guys is, do you believe it's immoral to seek out power over others? Andy, I'll start with you.
So, no, because it all depends on your intention. Now, people say power. Okay, I'll save it.
Yeah.
I'll just say it.
Let's get you on. People
say, hey.
All right, Eric, gun to your head. Seeking power over others, immoral? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, Ian.
I'm gonna go with the big YES on this bad boy.
Well, I'm sorry, Ian and Eric. The correct answer was yes for this one. So, good job.
Right.
Good job. Yeah.
Foiled again.
So I do just want to start this conversation with just a quick definition of what the defining power for the context of this conversation real quickly. So, in social relationships, power refers to unequal control over important resources, so status, wealth, etc. For instance, in the A-B relationship, person A holds power if he or she can give or take away from person B something of value. So that's kind of the framework here in the definition of power that maybe we can use to facilitate this conversation. So, Eric, you seem to think you mentioned that you think it is maybe unequivocally immoral, and I'm curious to dig into that a little more.
Yeah, I do, because I think that if we are an evolved, that's a loaded term to use, but I think if we're an evolved, educated society and we recognize the impact of power, we would strive to share that power with others as opposed to lording it over others. I don't think that any one person should wield power over another person.
Andy, what do you think?
I agree. And this may seem in contrast to my original no. Because obviously lording power over people, yes, not cool. But I feel like so much of like power structure, as you defined it, is an unequal distribution of resources, right? I challenge myself to play devil's advocate here because it's harder, because it's such a cut and dry answer. In a way, it's like the inflection of the question denotes the answer pretty obviously and instinctually, right? But within AI, right, there's like a lot of speculation on how like if AI was to become fully sentient, how it would deal with, these humans that created it, right? And there's this concept of like the benevolent dictator in this situation. The AI being the gatekeeper to Earth's resources and with a benevolent mindset, keeping them under check, potentially saving the planet, whatever, not wiping out humans, etc., because they would otherwise destroy the planet, whatever, right? So I think the framework in which we tackle the question is important because we often use our empirical evidence of like power. My fucking manager, he's shitty and he holds my paycheck in his wallet. Like that mindset, or governments doing the same thing. I think frames a lot of the conversation we have about this. But anyway, I think like, yeah, it's all about intention.
Well, I got a quick interjecting question. So it's like, is power for yourself, does it mean power over others? Or does that question only exist within the framework of a society in which like there are like, or like an ownership society where there are always going to be all of these different levels of power? And it's like, that question only exists because you live under the thumb of someone else. I mean, like, is there a way to have like, power for oneself that doesn't come at the expense of exploiting someone else? Like,
but what does power for oneself look like if it's not in relationship to other people? Like, I just don't know how you would define power in the absence of relationship.
That's my question. Is I'm trying to can we define it? Like, is it definable? Is it possible to define power over oneself or for oneself absent of those relationships? And like,
I mean, that's just agency, right?
Is that kind of how we're thinking of it? Like, is power just agency? Because I think that like, if we think about power positively, like I think that's how we think of it, which is like freedom in that sense. But it's like weird because like at least in American society, I feel like
but
power
like
and freedom are like interchangeable.
Defined as the ability to, but yeah, like freedom and the concept of liberty. Like, I mean, I'm like showing my Marxism like over here, but like that only exists if you are able to withhold resources from others and you are able to move freely about the world despite the lack of free mobility that other people have. Like, again, it's part of this like networked social construct. Like, I don't know that there's any way to conceive of that only in talking about the individual.
I think I don't think you can really talk about, at least my gut on this is, I don't think you can really talk about power in absence of a social society. And so like this article goes on to define 6 bases of powers. And I actually think this kind of gets to the core of the question is like, when we typically think of power, a quick, like I feel like the first image that comes to mind is this idea of like coercive power, like the idea to have like negative impacts of other people or withhold anything. But there are many other forces of power that we all share with each other all of the time. And so like, obviously we have like referent power, like being charismatic, or expert power, like being super knowledgeable about something. And you have power in the sense that you can give people information that will help them in their life or whatever. And then you also have like just general persuasiveness power. Like you're just like, I can convince you to do what I want because like you happen to like me, and I like tell you funny jokes or like give you information in a way that you find pleasing or whatever. And all of those things are beneficial. And so when I ask the question if it's immoral to seek out power over other people, I guess what I'm really trying to get at is like, I think we think of coercive power, but is there a framework where we can see this, where we're looking at bringing up power in an equitable standpoint, where like, yeah, we have power over other people in the sense that we give them knowledge. Like, yeah, we have informational power over the people. We have the power to empower others, or, we have the power to like build up everyone. It's not necessarily power over others in a coercive sense, but power in a more communal and collaborative sense. Does that make sense to you guys?
I think so, but I also think, I don't know if you'd agree with me, but I think it's two sides of the same coin. Like, I remember like one of the things the article said was like, the power to reward, like reward power. You have the power to reward people. But I feel like if you have the power to reward someone, you also have the power to punish someone, because you have to think about what you can frame as reward.
Even if that's like, just withholding, right?
Yeah, it's like, because what if the reward, I have the power to reward you with food, but like if I'm able to withhold the food, like that's a punishment if that's something that you need.
Sure.
So it's like, it's weird because I feel like, these are social concepts stripped of like all materiality. And I think in a vacuum, they're very interesting questions, but I think looked at through the framework or the lens of like the society we have in place, I think it becomes very different. So.
Yeah, it becomes a really dumb and pointless question, right? So on that note, let's go ahead and end this show. Thank you all so much for listening. Go ahead and like and subscribe and do all that stuff. Donate to our Patreon. Of course, I've been Shay. That's Ian. That's Eric. And that's Andy. We're out.